So in today's text, we have familiar readings. We have a lot of them during this season, but very, very familiar readings. And there are a lot of things that have come together for me over the last few days. Part of it is the news, some of it is life stages. Yesterday, we had the opportunity to drive down and celebrate our son's birthday. Eli is 24 years old, which means that I am a lot older than I was when he was born. It was kind of interesting because we took a few pictures of him and with us and so on. And when we got home, I saw the photos of him, and Marielle said, "You know, he's the same age you were when you went on internship during seminary." And I thought, wait, what? I had at that point in time been married for 2 years and was starting my third year of seminary and starting my vicariat, my internship. And when I think of that time and place, and I think of the readings that we have for today, what comes to my mind is this idea of a long journey of faith that binds us at certain points. But in particular, today's readings remind me of the stone that we stand on, that firm footing, that no matter what is going on, and there is a lot going on, no matter what is going on, that firm foundation is still there. The stone from which we were hewn, as the first reading says. Or in the gospel text, we hear it classically when Peter confesses to Jesus that he is the Messiah, the Son of the living God. And Jesus turns to him and says, "Peter, on this rock I will build my church." It adds more power in the Greek when we understand that Peter's name, Petros, is rock. You are the rock. Now, I've personally not traveled to Rome, but if you were to travel, you would see in the basilica named after Peter that high up around the edge of the dome, chiseled into the stone in Latin, are the words, "You are Peter, and on this church I will build my rock." Now, think about that. There are a lot of things I suppose you could build on a rock. Jesus could have gone in any number of different directions, but Jesus says, "I will build my church." My church. What is a church? And what does that have to do with rocks? When we think of the text that we have today, we're mindful that the church is that bedrock. The church, when it conveys the gospel of Christ in word and deed, is that very rock that holds us up. Now, when I was thinking of my son's age and where I was at that point in my life and thinking of the rock, and I'm hearing the stories on the news about fire, especially near my beloved camp, I am mindful of that journey and those touch points in my own life. When I was a young child in suburban Chicago, we attended the school that was attached to the church that we attended. St. Peter's was the name of the school and church, the Rock. I started there, and I would see my teachers in church, eventually growing up in age and starting to take confirmation, which I'm forgetting if that came after English or math, but was a class in school. My family then moved to San Diego, where we found a church eventually, and the pastor decided that I should do the confirmation program there from the beginning. So I got to do an extra year of confirmation. I don't know if that's what caused me to go to seminary or any number of things. But all along the way were these touch points, people that I would come alongside of, people that would nurture my faith, from my own family to my teachers, my pastors, Sunday school teachers. In San Diego, we belonged to a young mission church, and the founding pastor of that community was still a member of the congregation, Pastor Ernst Karsten. Pastor Karsten I was fascinated by because he had been born in the late 1800s, which in my mind was just inconceivable that I would overlap with somebody of that age. He had grown up in Iowa speaking German as a first language, which was not unusual in that time and place on the farm. But what he needed at that point in his life was somebody that could help him with his gardening periodically. And so I was tapped to spend time with Pastor Ernst Karsten, talking about all the old stories and working in his yard and garden. Now, I can't honestly say that there is a specific story that comes out of that time, but I'm mindful of all the people over my years that I had the opportunity to come alongside of, who shared their love of God in the way in which they interacted with me, the tasks that we did together, the words that were spoken. When we hear in the text today about this stone, I think we also need to stop a little bit and think about what that stone is. We think of stone as being hard. If a stone falls on you, that would hurt, right? We think of something that's unyielding, that's unbending, something that is heavy. It is something that supports us. But in the psalm today, our refrain reminds us that this stone, this good news of gospel, this everlasting power of God, is in many ways best described as love. Simply as love. As I moved through the years, perhaps the next formative phase for me was my time at Cal Lutheran, working at Mount Cross Camp here in the hills. I had a chance to get to know Pastor Gary Stevenson, the executive director, quite well, and he guided me on the path as I pointed myself towards seminary. When I think of Mount Cross and I think of the fires there, I worry. I am mindful of all the lives that have been impacted. Times in which I had an opportunity to share the good news with my colleagues on staff, but equally as often, if not more so, I would receive the good news from my colleagues on staff and from the kids and youth who were there. Who do we come alongside of that reminds us of how our feet are anchored in the storm, how as the world seems to fall apart around us, that we have a steady place that is not there to break us, but reminds us of God's great love for us in the midst of all of this chaos. I would encourage you as you think of these readings and as you begin to move through your week, that you would be reminded that our God of love is with us through our life's journey, and that our life's journey is more than just today, but is accumulation of hundreds and hundreds and thousands of todays. And all of those people that we brush up against in our journey are people, hopefully, that point us back towards this rock of love in God, or remind us of that love that is Christ. Amen.